It was Christmas Eve, and I was standing outside the house I grew up in holding a pecan pie that took me 5 hours to make. My breath fogged the air. The cold bit into my fingers even through the gloves. Behind the frosted glass, I saw lights, soft gold twinkling, and shadows moving across the living room I used to decorate every year. I heard the faint clink of wine glasses. Laughter. Something warm. I rang the doorbell. It took a second, maybe 5. Then the door opened. She stood there. My mother. Her sweater had sequins shaped like reindeer antlers. Her eyes met mine and stayed flat. "Sorry," she said slowly, her hand still on the knob. "I think you have the wrong house." I blinked. "Mom." She smiled politely like I was a solicitor. "I'm sorry. I don't recognize you." There wasn't even a pause. No wink, no whispered joke. Just that face, calm, careful, closed. "It's me," I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Emily." Her smile didn't falter. "I hope you find where you're supposed to be." And the door gently closed. No slam, no confrontation, just finality. I stood there, pie in my hands, the cold crawling through the sleeves of my coat. I thought maybe this was a cruel joke, some twisted family prank. So I waited. 1 minute, 2, no one came. From inside, I could still hear the music. Sinatra's voice wrapped around clinking glasses. A pop of laughter from someone near the kitchen. Like they were having the holiday I thought I was part of. I stepped back down onto the walkway. My boots made no sound in the snow. Then my phone buzzed. "Ryan, my brother." I answered. My voice came out tight. "Don't be upset," he said quickly. "But we couldn't let you in." "Not tonight." I didn't respond. "It's complicated, Em. Just please don't make a scene." "Okay." A scene. I looked at the pie still in my hands, still warm. How long had they been planning this? I wasn't always the stranger at the door. There was a time when my name was on every grocery list, every utility bill, every whispered thank you that came too late. When Dad had his stroke, I was the one who took unpaid leave to manage his appointments, organize prescriptions, and fill out his disability paperwork. Mom couldn't handle it alone. Ryan was too overwhelmed, so I handled it. When the mortgage nearly slipped into foreclosure 2 winters ago, I wired 3 months' payments in one night. No one asked. They just assumed I'd cover it. And I did, because that's what the capable daughter does, right? No fuss. No need to be told she's needed. She just appears, fixes it, and disappears again. I bought the Christmas tree the year Dad was laid off. Wrapped gifts labeled from Mom and Dad that I paid for. Paid Ryan's rent for 7 months straight when he took time off to find himself. I didn't even flinch when Mom texted Sweetheart. "Can you help Ryan again? You know how hard it's been for him." No, "How are you?" No, "Do you have enough?" Just "Can you?" and I always did. Last Thanksgiving, I roasted the turkey, brought the wine, the sides, the desserts. I arrived early, set the table, even made Mom's favorite cranberry tart. And when it was time for the family photo, everyone gathered in front of the fireplace. Mom handed me the camera and said, "Can you take it, Emily? We just want the family in this one." I laughed, shrugged it off. But I still remember how my hands shook. When I asked about it later, Mom said, "You're just so independent, honey. You never really needed us." Independent, the polite word for unseen. And now, Ryan, the same brother I carried financially and emotionally, was the one telling me not to make a scene after I was turned away from our own front door. I remembered a voicemail he left me last year. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Em." And tonight I found out exactly what he'd do. Shut the door. Was I really just a stopgap? The emotional sponge everyone wrung out and forgot. How did I become the only one they don't see unless something's falling apart? The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I hadn't slept, not really. Just lay there staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment. My phone screen still glowed with the last notification from Ryan. "Let it go, Em. You're making this bigger than it is." I opened the group chat we used for family holidays. It didn't exist anymore. At least, not for me. I searched for photos from last year's Christmas, found one Mom had posted. The living room was glowing with light. Dad held a gift box. Ryan had his arm around his new girlfriend. Everyone smiling. Everyone but me. Because I wasn't in it. Not behind the camera, not in the tags, not even in the comments. It was as if I hadn't been there at all. It didn't happen all at once. That's the trick. When they erase you, they do it softly. It starts with forgetting to tell you about dinner plans. Then comes the, "Oh, we thought you were busy." Then the jokes at your expense when you're not in the room. And finally, the edits, photos, messages, group texts, where you're simply not included. It was never loud, but it was clear. I logged into the shared savings account, the one I set up for emergencies after Dad's stroke. My name was still listed, but none of the recent transfers were mine. They hadn't even asked for help this time. They just moved on. I thought that would be the worst of it, until I checked my mail. There was a letter from a law office. At first, I panicked, thought it was about Dad's health or the mortgage again. But no, it was a notice. Mom had updated her will. I wasn't listed. I read it twice, blinking. I had helped Mom draft that very document 2 years ago, paid for the consultation, typed up the health directive, even made sure Ryan was included despite his lack of contribution. Now, she left her jewelry to Ryan's girlfriend. The house to Dad for as long as he resides, then to Ryan. Nothing for me. Not even a mention. She's doing fine on her own, the attorney had scribbled in notes from the meeting. Doesn't need anything. That's how she explained it. Not with anger. Not with rejection. Just practicality. I wasn't part of the future because I didn't need to be. Is that all? I was useful until I wasn't inconvenient enough to ignore. I didn't argue. I didn't write a long message. I didn't ask why. I just opened my banking app. First, the automatic rent transfer to my parents' account canceled. Second, the shared savings account my name removed. Third, the emergency card I gave Ryan just in case blocked. Each action felt like closing a door. Not slamming it, not locking it, just clicking it shut. There was no rush of anger, no tears. Just a strange, clean stillness, like after a snowstorm when everything goes quiet. I took the pecan pie still untouched and left it on their porch. No note, no message. Then I walked away. As I drove, the lights of their house disappeared in the rearview mirror, blurred behind frost. By the time I got home, the notifications had already started. Missed calls, voicemails, group texts, names lighting up my screen like fireflies trapped in a jar. Mom, Dad, Ryan. Even my aunt who hadn't spoken to me in a year. What's going on? Your mother is upset. Emily, answer your phone. Please don't do this. But I didn't. I didn't even open them. Not out of spite, just because there was nothing left to answer. I turned off my phone, made tea, sat by the window and watched the snow fall. The cold used to sting. Now it felt like armor. I was there. I whispered to no one. I just wasn't invited inside. If I vanished, would they miss me or just the help I gave? The silence didn't last long. By the second day, my voicemail was full. By the third, Mom was calling from her work line. By the fourth, Ryan's messages changed tone from defensive to furious to pleading. I don't know what you're trying to prove. You're really gonna leave Mom like this. I get it, okay? You're mad, but this is too far. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish them, but because I finally understood that my presence had never been the point, only my function. Then the cracks began to show. A week after Christmas, I got a text from a neighbor, Mrs. Daly. She'd lived next door to my parents for decades, still baked her own bread, still watched everything. Your mom's been crying outside. I saw her in the yard with your dad. They were arguing. Something about the mortgage. 2 days later, another message. Did you know Ryan's girlfriend left Saeed? He maxed out her credit card. Moved out while he was at work. I didn't reply. Just sat on my couch, tea in hand, and let the cold settle in my chest again. Then came the photo. It popped up in a social media thread I hadn't muted yet. Ryan holding a brand new PS5, grinning. Captioned, "Got lucky this new year," with a hashtag treat yourself, the card he used, the one I'd given him for emergencies. Gas, groceries, interviews. It was still active when I left. I'd blocked it later, but not in time. Mom called that night. Her voice was sharp, worn thin. Your father's furious. The rent isn't paid. Ryan's in trouble. I can't do this alone. I didn't answer, because it was never about them needing me. It was about what happened when I stopped being invisible. They had chosen a narrative for years, Ryan the dreamer, the one who just needed time, me the solid one, the rock, the provider. But what happens when the provider stops showing up? The structure collapses, because the one they leaned on wasn't just the safety net. She was the foundation, and when I pulled myself out, everything they'd built on top of me began to crack. I didn't gloat, didn't screenshot the PS5 post, didn't tell anyone I'd seen this coming. I just closed the app, set my phone down, and let it ring. Because for the first time, their emergency wasn't mine to solve. It started with the voicemail from Mom. "Emily, we're not okay. Your father's heart is acting up again. I'm scared. Please, call me." "No, I'm sorry. No, we shouldn't have shut you out." Just fear twisted into guilt. Then came Dad's email. "We need to talk. Whatever this is, don't let it destroy the family." And finally, the text from someone I didn't expect. Ryan's girlfriend. She used to pull me aside at family dinners, whispering, "You're the only one in that house with a full brain." I used to think she got it. But now she wrote, "Please don't stir things up right now. Everyone's under a lot of pressure. Maybe just let this go. Let this go." The same girl who once told me you deserve better than how they treat you was now saying, "Let them keep treating you that way. It's easier." I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I was bitter, but because they still didn't see me. To them, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was a lever, a switch, a fix-it button they wanted to press again. They didn't want me back. They wanted the version of me that didn't ask questions, the version that cooked the dinner, paid the bills, and stepped out of the photo when asked. "It's not about who's right," Mom said in another voicemail, her tone almost rehearsed. "It's about keeping the family together." But the family wasn't broken because I left. It was broken when they decided I didn't belong unless I stayed useful and silent. Why is it that when you finally say enough, they act like you're the one tearing everything apart? I agreed to see them, once. No build-up, no confrontation. Just a Sunday afternoon in the same living room they once shut me out of. Mom had cleaned. Dad wore the sweater I bought him 2 Christmases ago. Ryan didn't look up from his phone until I sat down. No one said I'm sorry. Instead, Mom reached for my hand like nothing had happened. "Emily, this has gone too far. We're family." That word again. I looked at her, then at Dad, then Ryan. "You shut the door in my face," I said. "You told me I didn't belong, and when the rent stopped getting paid, then you remembered my name." Dad sighed like I was being dramatic. "We were under stress. You took it the wrong way." I almost laughed. "Is there a right way to be erased?" Ryan scoffed. "You think you're the victim? You've always been cold, always made us feel like we owed you." I blinked. "You did owe me. I kept the lights on. I paid for Christmas. I paid for your gas, your school, your second chances." No one argued, because they knew it was true. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but still no apology. "You've always been so independent, sweetheart. We thought you didn't need us." I stood up. I didn't need help. I needed recognition. Silence. Then Dad muttered, "You don't walk away from family." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You already walked away. You just did it quieter." They all stared, not angry, just stunned, like they finally heard something they couldn't refute. I picked up my coat, the same one I wore that night outside their door. Before I left, I turned once more and said what they couldn't argue with. I was there. "You just found life easier when I wasn't." And I walked out, not slamming the door, not waiting for them to follow, just done. The next morning, I woke up to nothing. No missed calls, no new voicemails, no last-ditch texts filled with guilt or rage. Just quiet. I stood by the window with my coffee watching snow drift through the air like dust falling off the sky. For the first time in years, I didn't have a plan to fix anything. No transfers to schedule, no groceries to cover, no calls to return, only stillness. and it didn't scare me. And I opened the hallway closet and pulled down an old box labeled Home. Inside was the family photo album, pages and pages of frozen smiles, birthdays, beach trips, graduations. There I was always slightly off-center, holding the camera, carrying the cake, picking up the slack. I closed the album and placed it on the top shelf far back behind winter blankets. Then I walked to my car. The pecan pie I brought on Christmas Eve was still there. The crust had cracked. The filling had collapsed inward, still wrapped, still untouched. I picked it up, walked across the street, and set it on the front step of a church I'd never entered. No note, no explanation, just something sweet left behind. Back home, my phone buzzed. One message. From Mom. We lost the house. Ryan moved out. Your dad blames me. I was wrong. Please, Emily, come home. I stared at it, then tapped delete. No reply. Not because I wanted to punish her. Just because I'd already come to the door, and they had already decided I didn't belong. I went outside again, no coat this time. Let the cold sting my skin. It didn't hurt. Not like it used to. This kind of cold didn't freeze. It cleared. The street was silent, the sky wide open, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Not because someone needed me, but because I didn't need to be needed. If you've ever stood at a door that should have opened but didn't, just leave a comment.